Good afternoon again from Yummy BTV. Wishing you all well, sending plenty of love your way, of course. I'm fresh from a counselling session this afternoon. As promised this morning, last night, I was asked to do my take, a piece of my so-called opinion of a case that's been in the headlines for quite some time, where came to a conclusion yesterday, sentenced so eloquently by her ladyship in a Crown Court, where a serving police officer, David Carrick, received 30 years life with 200 and odd days as well. So the likelihood is he's never going to get out again. So he's relinquished all the power that he held for a lifetime of some of the most appalling crimes to ever come out of a police station. He won't be the first and he won't be the last, right? But the one thing that we forget to realise sometimes, right, and I find this quite funny, you know that he would have to go on a protection wing, like many with those kind of jobs, prison officers, police officers, etc. They go on those protection wings where the so-called scourge of the criminal fraternity by way of sexual offenders and child killers and that kind of stuff are on those wings. But it's also good to point out there are vulnerable prisoners on those wings as well that haven't got those kind of offences and are just over there because they can't manage the normal locations that we are on. But what do both wings have in common is that even by going on a protection wing, everybody, all prisoners in prison would have been nicked by a police officer. So he's on a hiding to nothing, really. He can't win either way, which is the other thing they don't tell you in those category A's with this kind of background with the offenders, is that they spend a lot of time in secluded isolation for the reasons that I've just explained before. So we get round to, right? Did some notes today, so we get this out properly, but on careful inspection, right, we'll look sadly at the victims first. They say some of the victims were known, some of the victims wasn't, right? The crimes go back historically and to recent times, from rape, sexual abuse, to violence, whatever, everything combined into one, right? Loads and loads and loads of charges. Now, the ones that he doesn't know, now, few of those victims, right, sadly, would have been ringing from home, maybe suffering domestic violence or being involved in, some kind of things that are harm for them. Then, they're calling for the police's help. He would be, say, going round to those addresses to go where those vulnerable ladies are, and then obviously finding out now that he's in fact they're coming in vulnerable. He's actually destroying their lives forever and ever. The one thing as well that I think some of us that have been through the system are going to jump on straight away is that how could it be then known victims, not known victims? Because remember some of the ones he knew, he's probably emotional blackmail with some of the things that go on in those institutions, like in prison, with prison officers and in police stations, where you scratch my back or scratch yours, we all stick together. So he would have had to be with some colleagues at some time. Because even to go to those addresses, he would be choosing carefully, in that manipulative mind of his, where he would choose colleagues probably that, no, not setting the cat amongst the pigeons here, but probably where there's one, there's more. So there might have been a couple more that have done, crimes around him that all had broken rules in that police station, where he could say, well, if you don't come with me, if you say anything, I'll let this on and let that, because he's holding a bit more power than a lot more of them on there. So he'd have had to have colleagues with him at some stage. Same as if those victims were going to a police station to report crimes or needed to be interviewed in an interview room of some sort. He would go in there. There would have to be people watching, a sergeant, writing things down and that kind of stuff. And there would have had to be a couple of people with him at that time as well. The crimes went on too long for it not to have been. There's no way he could have gone through that whole life of a long-serving police officer, David Carrick, without somebody seeing something highly impossible, I say. In fact, we also find out, we know that when you're a police officer, you sign up for it. You're meant to be upholding the law. You didn't, you went in there probably for those reasons. You had a hatred towards women, probably, and that's just the way you are. Your character is, you won't be the first, you won't be the last. But we also find out that he was an expert firearms officer, head of it or near the top of it. So I would say with a warped individual like that, who abuses his power like that, I bet there's some mind or darkness in those files of when he was serving in the firearms department. There had to be more stuff. Come on, man. There's no one who's done this much crime where it's not going to show out in other areas as well, clearly in front of some colleagues as well. So it'd be interesting if they could dig into there. They haven't brought that out yet, because obviously when there's going to be one head to roll and another head to roll and another head to roll, it's always been a cover-up. We saw with the Savile thing, didn't we? You know, that when Jimmy Savile had loads, he had the front door keys everywhere, and many couldn't really speak, police officers, judges, whatever, you know, people that are around him who have been involved in the perversion of serious sexual crimes, right? So he'd be able to, you can't say nothing because I know secrets on you. And this is how it works in the prison system, in all institutions. Let's be honest about this. And this, we go back historically to institutions in general, which we're all pretty aware of. In children's homes, people join for those reasons, for their gratification. We know even doctors, hospitals in their care, that exercise a right and take absolutely violate you as well. Even in nurseries, there's been cases of, you know, even women doing horrendous things in an institution of that kind of thing as well. Football scouts, way back in the day, blackmailing little boys. You can become professional footballers, but you've got to let me do this and do that. It's been going on. I always believe Gary Speed committed suicide because of something like that, I'm afraid. So Uncle Yami believes that because it did happen to him when he was a little boy. Very, very sad case that. We also go back to when we was in the YPs and getting violated by, in the olden days of the 80s, where we get strip search. We know it's procedure. Not all officers are bad. We know that. But there would have been 2 or 3 that when they strip you naked and laugh at you because you're, you know, and humiliate you while you're naked there, you can feel really real personality defects and hatred in a man as time goes on. This is how anti-authority figures are made by way of offenders in the early days, going into their adulthood as well, created by this kind of atmosphere. I'm telling you, and they just get kicks out of laughing at you and all that. Again, not all of them like that, but there'll be a couple that enjoy the humiliation of watching you naked and all that. Remember that Mr. Spiegel's in Stamford House when me and Eubank used to be going, all of us used to stand up in the Nazi showers in the gas chamber in the morning, standing there, and he would just come by with his bald head and spectacles. He looked like the spitting image of what a sexual pervert nonce case would look like, with, you know, with his belly out like that, all dandruff around by his hair, and walk past and looking out the corner of his eye and go, yeah, sausages for breakfast and all that. Come on, man. It's been going on in these places with people in authority and power for years and years and years. Takes me back to the Gary Waddle case. I've done a video on it once where when I was a little boy, he used to terrorise me in Paddington Green, and in the end, he was another one. I'll fit you up. I'll put the plastic on you to go in equipped and put things on you to get you nicked, and then go in the box in the court in the morning and say that I saw him do this, and then you get remanded in custody. He ended up killing his missus and his mother-in-law. So, and that his way of thinking draws parallels to this. He wasn't a sexual offender as far as I know, Mr. Waddle, but he's definitely a cold-hearted killer of women at the end, right? But again, I draw parallels with this kind of character of David Carrick. So, yep, this is what I'm getting at. So, all right, I thought we've covered that and that and that. We've gone through the Savile bit. We'll leave it, but the point of the video, Uncle Yami says, and I bet some of you agree, there's no way you could go on such a long run without people knowing. You're as good as the person committing it. Trust me. Old police officers, new ones coming in, get frightened to say anything just because the job's worth and all that, because there's a hierarchy of who's been there the longest and who knows who in the highest position and all that. Hey, you scratch my back, remember this when this? It goes like that, and it goes like that in the prison system as well. Sending loads of love to you all, and hope to be up in a little while, of course.